Fang Chen's figure flickered, attempting to veer to the right and evade, but the colossal creature had clearly locked onto him, altering its trajectory accordingly to intercept him directly. A mere moment later, a muffled grinding sound of collapsing void echoed as a pitch, black, sky-shrouding warship plowed through nothingness and hurtled straight toward him. Fang Chen's heart seized. Could that be a warship from the Third Fleet? Yet, on second thought, it didn't add up. They had already seized the world embryo. Why would they still linger on the periphery of the Earth realm? This was a completely new pirate ship. Focusing his gaze, Fang Chen peered out and saw that this warship, too, flew the white skull banner, clearly the emblem of the Deathly Dirge Pirate Gang. The warship slowly advanced until it was right beside him, then stopped. It was immeasurably vast. At a single glance, its end was nowhere in sight. On the deck stood 4 First Calamity Realm sages and a densely packed, innumerable host of Deity Transformation Realm pirates, each one grim and stern. It was evident these were all ruthless survivors, tempered in life and death slaughter. One of the sage, level pirates, robed in black, bore a permanent scar on his right cheek, a mark left by the backlash of natural laws. Fang Chen froze for a brief moment. He had seen this pirate before. He was the very sage from the pirate ship, where Butterfly Ferry had been. Then Butterfly Ferry. His eyes urgently swept over, and sure enough, amid the 4 sages stood a pink-dressed maiden with a fragile, delicate appearance. Who else could it be but Butterfly Ferry? Back in the Sumeru Divine Prison, Butterfly Ferry had only been at the Paragon level. She had entered the prison trial to vie for the position of the 9th boss, and the chance to break through to become a sage upon success. But due to his own appearance, her mission had failed. Later, Butterfly Ferry, perhaps receiving some emergency orders, had abandoned pursuing Fang Chen and turned away. Who would have thought that after all these days, they would meet again in the vast, boundless void? Fang Chen's mouth twitched violently. Even if enemies were destined to cross paths, did it have to be this narrow? The myriad heavens were so expansive he hadn't even flown out of the southern region yet, and still he ran into her. Without a second thought, he immediately activated his void feather mantle, ready to flee. But Butterfly Ferry on the warship frowned and lightly shouted, "Why are you running? I've been waiting for your news." Fang Chen was suddenly stunned, thick puzzlement arising in his heart. Since when had he ever cooperated with Butterfly Ferry? Butterfly Ferry waved her hand, her tone softening. "Come aboard. Tell me everything about the Earth realm's intelligence." The other 3 sages also wore genial expressions, showing not the slightest trace of hostility. Fang Chen's eyes spun as his mind raced. He recalled Wang Chongxiao once mentioning that his impersonation of Fang Chen to commit misdeeds was merely incidental. Could it be that Butterfly Ferry was cooperating with Wang Chongxiao? And now she had mistaken him for Wang Chongxiao, disguised as Fang Chen. At this thought, he found it both laughable and frustrating. Indeed, Butterfly Ferry would never imagine that the real Fang Chen could appear here. Still, should he board the ship? The Chaotic Ancient Blood Marquis could appear in pursuit at any moment. Time was running short. Noticing that Wang Chongxiao still hadn't come aboard, Butterfly Ferry turned and urged, "What's the matter with you? Do you want the Enlightenment Spring or not?" The Enlightenment Spring. Fang Chen's eyes lit up. Could it be the rare treasure that could enhance one's domain of comprehension? At that thought, he hesitated no more. Decisively, he leaped onto the warship, half ruthfully explaining, "I was just worried you might be laying a trap. That's why I dared not board rashly." Caution was, after all, Wang Chongxiao's nature. In the past, he probably wouldn't have boarded so easily either. Sure enough, Butterfly Ferry rolled her eyes at him and scoffed. "What do you have worth stealing? Do you think you're Fang Chen? So tell me, what is the situation in the Earth realm now? How many tracks of foreign sages have you discovered? I need to prepare the appropriate robbery plans based on their cultivated Daos." Fang Chen suddenly understood. The fleet under Butterfly Ferry's command lacked the strength to compare with the Third Fleet. It could not directly wage war against a small realm. They could only specifically target lone, wandering sages from the myriad heavens. Due to the great war of the ancient giants, the Earth realm had gathered a large number of foreign sages, making it undoubtedly the best target. Thus, she had partnered with Wang Chongxiao. He would infiltrate the Earth realm to scout intelligence, while Butterfly Ferry led the team for plundering. Only, how was Fang Chen supposed to know those foreign sages' information? His gaze shifted as he sighed and said, "Butterfly Ferry, you needn't waste your effort. The Third Fleet has already struck first and seized the Earth realm's world embryo. Now everyone in the Earth realm is in panic. For the time being, they fear the Third Fleet is still nearby and won't dare leave easily. Butterfly Fairy whirled around, her brows shooting up. The Third Fleet, they were in the Earth realm too. Fang Chen nodded. Exactly. I even encountered a person who could turn his whole body into flower petals. Seemed to be an avatar of a great sage from the Third Fleet. Butterfly Fairy's fist slammed heavily against the cabin door beside her as she growled. That is the Myriad Phenomena Grand Sage 100 Blossoms avatar, only dispatched for critical events. Hearing Fang Chen describe the 100 Blossoms avatar so accurately, she no longer harbored the slightest doubt about his intelligence. Even within the Deathly Dirge Pirate Gang, very few knew of that avatar's existence. Damn it, we've been busy for nothing. Butterfly Fairy roared in unwillingness. The three first Calamity Sages also wore expressions brimming with ferocity. Drawing a deep breath, Butterfly Fairy forcefully suppressed her frustration. The Third Fleet has stirred up the grass and startled the snake. We can forget waiting for hares to crash into trees. We'll have to switch to the next target. We'll head to the nearest realm still under assault by the ancient giants. I refuse to believe that after all my struggle to command a pirate ship, I come away with not a single gain. She had endured trials and countless tests to finally become the 9th boss. Countless eyes were watching her from behind. This was her first time commanding a fleet on an expedition. If she produced no results, she would be plagued by doubts and accusations that she relied solely on her father's position. She was desperate to prove herself. Pass down the order, turn around and set course for the Star Mystic Realm. Butterfly Fairy commanded decisively. Fang Chen secretly rejoiced. As it happened, the Star Mystic Realm was his next destination. He could hitch a ride and even use the time aboard to cultivate. Most importantly, that Enlightenment Spring. Rubbing his hands together, he chuckled and asked, Butterfly Fairy, then my Enlightenment Spring. Butterfly Fairy looked reluctant, snorting, I haven't robbed a single person. Surely you don't expect me to do business at a loss. Fang Chen was speechless. Their failure to plunder was because the Third Fleet had alerted the prey. How could she renege? His gaze swiveled and he added, we haven't exactly failed completely. With that, he produced all the items from the 100 Blossoms avatar except the flower petals, saying, I fought a great battle against the Myriad Phenomena Grand Sage 100 Blossoms avatar and seized all her personal effects. These are spoils, all items for women, so I'll give them to you. He had long seen that relations between fleets in the Deathly Dirge Pirate Gang were far from harmonious. Otherwise, two fleets wouldn't have targeted the same world without knowing. Butterfly Fairy was already furious at the Third Fleet for ruining her plans. Suddenly hearing that the 100 Blossoms avatar had been defeated by Wang Chongxiao, and that many trophies had been taken, she couldn't help but laugh in astonishment. You really do have some skill. Though that avatar's cultivation is only at the Paragon level, she is extremely difficult to deal with. Before I attained sagehood, I had not the slightest confidence of beating her. Let me see what spoils you've gathered. Upon inspecting, a peculiar look crossed Butterfly Fairy's face. Hairpins, storage, implements, those were one thing. But why had her pants and clothes been stripped off as well? This Wang Chongxiao truly had no shame. Still, seeing the 100 Blossoms avatar suffer such a huge loss, she readily took delight in it and praised, well done. The Myriad Phenomena Grand Sage dotes on this avatar, once even vied with me for the chance to become a sage. Now that her avatar has been robbed down to her clothes, won't she be driven mad with rage? Fang Chen inwardly cursed. The Myriad Phenomena Grand Sage actually cared this deeply for that avatar. Half the credit for stripping the avatar bare was his wouldn't she come looking for trouble with him later too. At that thought, he swept his gaze around at the surrounding pirates and raised his voice resoundingly, let her go mad. I, Wang Chongxiao, am the one who stripped the 100 Blossoms avatar. My bones are forged of iron and steel. If the Myriad Phenomena Grand Sage has what it takes, she can come seek revenge on me. The three sages and the countless deity transformation pirates all turned their gazes toward him, utterly stupefied. Dai Xianzi exclaimed in shock. Are you crazy? How can you go around shouting about something like this? Among pirates, mutual deceit is even more rampant than among the various riffraff of the Earth realm. Once they hear such words, they will eventually speak them, and in the blink of an eye, it will spread throughout the 9 fleets. Fang Chen straightened his back and said proudly, it doesn't matter. I have never feared anyone in my life. Even those at the 3 Calamities realm are no exception. Dai Xianzi looked at the Wang Chongxiao before her with a somewhat unfamiliar expression. The Wang Chongxiao in her memory was a man full of schemes, one who harmed others to benefit himself. During their first collaboration, he had ruthlessly schemed against her within the Sumeru divine prison. She never expected that today such upright and unyielding words could come out of his mouth. Dai Xianzi couldn't help but look at Wang Chongxiao with new eyes. She parted her red lips and said, "Rest assured, as long as you work for me, even the Myriad Phenomena Sage wouldn't dare do anything to you." She then waved her hand, her tone tinged with a hint of earnestness. "Come with me, I'll take you to the Enlightenment Spring." Fang Chen, however, had a different scheme in mind. He almost wished that the Myriad Phenomena Sage would truly go after Wang Chongxiao. The more dangerous Wang Chongxiao's situation became, the more secure his own safety would be while blending in. He chuckled inwardly, concealing that hint of schadenfreude deeply. Then he leaped up and closely followed Dai Xianzi, flying toward the midsection of the colossal warship that rivaled a landmass. Though called a warship, in truth its vastness was no less than that of a floating continent. This flight alone took the time it takes to finish a cup of tea before the two finally reached the warship's core area. Looking out, a uniquely blessed paradise abruptly burst into view. Several spirit veins crisscrossed like gigantic dragons, the mountains were towering and precipitous, ancient trees lush and skies scraping. Dense spiritual energy rose like rosy clouds, shrouding the entire area in an ethereal, immortal aura. Taoist palaces and divine temples were scattered among the peaks like stars. From the cliffs, waterfalls cascaded in rushing torrents, 1,000-foot white ribbons thundering down. In the gorges, mighty rivers surged, flowing endlessly. Fang Chen felt dazed for a moment, as if he had returned to the Central Plains, completely forgetting that he was actually inside a warship. He couldn't help but murmur under his breath, "How exactly was your warship built?" Such a colossal creation, seizing the very essence of heaven and earth. Even if all the resources of the Central Plains were exhausted, it would probably be impossible to build even one. And yet the Death-Tone pirates actually possessed a full 9 of them. Dai Xianzi's face was filled with poorly concealed pride. Every person who first boarded the warship would inevitably be utterly overwhelmed by this world-shaking spectacle. She crossed her arms over her chest, smiled arrogantly, and said proudly, "This is not something that people of the modern age have the ability to build." She paused, her tone brimming with boundless yearning. "These are the great Kayan Divine Kingdom's world, annihilating warships forged by the entire nation's might during the era of the Great Kayan Divine Kingdom." At its peak, 1,000 warships soared across the sky in formation, originally prepared to resist the invasion of some unknown existence. It's a pity that before the day they could be put to use arrived, the Divine Kingdom collapsed overnight, and those 1,000 annihilating warships were nearly completely destroyed along with it. Dai Xianzi sighed softly and continued, "The founder of our Death-Tone pirates toiled in the ruins, excavating and repairing for a full 1,000 years, before piecing together 10 ships before us." Fang Chen felt both shocked and that it all made perfect sense. Other than the great Kayan Divine Kingdom, which swallowed mountains and rivers with its majesty and grandeur, who else in the world could possibly forge such extraordinary world-annihilating warships? Ever since leaving the Central Plains, he had roamed far and wide, catching glimpses everywhere of the immortal shadows left by the great Kayan Divine Kingdom scattered across the long river of 10,000 years. A fragment of knowledge from a library, the divine tree of the netherworld, the myriad corpse goo, and now the towering warships before his eyes. Though the great Kayan Divine Kingdom had long since perished, it was everywhere, its lingering specter refusing to disperse. It was truly unimaginable exactly what kind of glorious and magnificent era that was. Even more unfathomable was why such a supremely prosperous era would head toward destruction overnight. The 4 great ferocious breeds, 1,000 annihilating warships, what kind of horrifying great enemy had the great Kayan Divine Kingdom once faced directly? Forget it, these are all unpleasant old matters. Deep within Dai Xianzi's eyes, a thick sense of regret surfaced. Even though that was an era dominated by the human race, merely from the perspective of having witnessed the legacies of the great Kayan Divine Kingdom, one could still catch a glimpse, see of its glorious splendor. Such an era, even for her, a member of a different race, couldn't help but make her heart yearn for it. At this point, she raised her hand and pointed toward a verdant high mountain embraced by 4 intertwining spirit veins. Upon that mountain, an exceedingly ancient grand formation was slowly revolving, radiating a bright yellow, heavy halo that firmly protected a spring within. From that spring, purple spiritual liquid slowly welled up, coalescing into a pool roughly 10 feet across. "There is the Enlightenment Spring," Dai Xianzi said. When it was first excavated, this warship was covered with a full 100 Enlightenment Springs, their waters abundant, containing an unparalleled surging power of enlightenment. A powerhouse at the divine transformation realm who entered to cultivate for a single day could comprehend an entirely new domain, a heaven-defying stroke of fortune. Fang Chen couldn't help but reveal a look of astonishment. One must know that cultivators at the divine transformation realm in the central plains often exhaust 100 years yet struggle to advance a single step further. Aside from the scarcity of cultivation resources, the greatest constraint was their own comprehension of the Grand Tao. Here, a single day in the spring could bring sudden enlightenment. Looking across the present world, I'm afraid even the divine capital and the four great realms could never possess such heaven-defying cultivation conditions. Then comprehending 5 domains would be as smooth as water flowing into a channel, as easy as turning over one's hand, wouldn't it? Dai Xianzi's tone shifted as she sighed softly. Regrettably, after 10,000 years of erosion of the 100 springs, only this one remains, not only on the verge of withering, but also having been used by countless people. The remaining enlightenment power within the spring water is already extremely thin, far from even a 10,000th of its peak. I'll take the liberty of allowing you to cultivate within it for 3 days. As for how much you ultimately gain, that will depend on your own fortune. Fang Chen showed not the slightest trace of disappointment. It was merely a fortuitous opportunity obtained under the borrowed name of Wang Chongxiao. Why would he disdain it? He immediately cupped his hands with a beaming smile. Many thanks, Dai Xianzi. Those spoils from the 100 flowers clones, I'll give them all to you. After saying this, he pushed all the various looted items toward Dai Xianzi. The latter's lips curled slightly upward as she said, although they aren't of much great use for my cultivation, they're still sufficient to strike a blow at the Myriad Phenomena Sage's arrogance. Thanks. You can cultivate here slowly then. She cheerfully put away the many items and was about to turn and take her leave. Suddenly, from the direction of the warship's stern, an overwhelmingly powerful aura belonging to the 2 Calamities realm surged up abruptly. Immediately after, a hoarse and indifferent voice rolled in, reverberating through the void. Why change course? Smile on Dai Xianzi's face instantly vanished as she muttered under her breath. What a hassle. Just as her words fell, 2 figures, one after the other, materialized from emptiness to substance, appearing before them out of thin air. The leader was an old woman in a black dress, holding a flag marked with a blood-red skull. Her face was stern and unsmiling, her eyes murky, yet she exuded the oppressive pressure of the 2 Calamities realm that weighed heavily upon the hearts of all the warship's expertise. Dai Xianzi, as the commander of the 9th Fleet, showed extreme respect before the old woman. Especially when her gaze fell upon the blood-red skull flag in the old woman's hand, she revealed a deep look of wariness and hastily saluted. Greetings, Lord Inspector. Fang Chen's eyes showed surprise. So there was actually a 2 Calamities realm expert hidden on this 9th warship, guarding it. Upon careful thought, this was reasonable. How could such invaluable world-annihilating warships be entrusted solely to Dai Xianzi and the other 4 1 Calamity Realm commanders with peace of mind? If several sages from some world launched a collective raid, the world, annihilating warships might not be preserved. He even secretly suspected that there might be even more formidable beings within the ship, or hidden trump cards capable of withstanding attacks from the 3 Calamities realm. He felt a chill of awe inwardly. The Deathstone Pirates Foundation was absolutely not to be underestimated. At that moment, as his gaze swept to the person behind the old woman, his expression couldn't help but change slightly. It was a 1 Calamity Realm sage with the face of a charming woman. Her appearance closely resembled a human, yet an eerie alien aura emanated from her. It was none other than the 2-faced alien sage he had dealt with in the Ice Realm. The moment he saw the blood-red flying claws the 3rd Fleet used to seize the realm embryo, he understood that this woman was definitely a member of the Death Sound Pirates. He never expected her to be on this very warship. Could she recognize him? A trace of worry flickered in the depths of Fang Chen's eyes. The black-robed old woman's turbid eyes fixed coldly on Butterfly Fairy as she spoke indifferently. Answer me, why did you change course? Butterfly Fairy quickly cupped her hands and replied, To answer the Inspector Envoy, it happened like this. She rapidly explained how the 3rd Fleet forcibly seized the Earth Realm embryo, alerting the enemy and causing the plan to go awry. After hearing this, the black-robed old woman pronounced in a hoarse voice, In that case, the plan to plunder the Earth Realm has been declared a failure. Butterfly Fairy's face changed slightly, and she defended, Inspector Envoy, it was not my failure in execution, but the 3rd Fleet intervened. I don't care about the process, only the result. Expressionlessly, the black Robed old woman took out a jade slip, scribbled a few strokes, and muttered coldly. The ninth chief's actions were careless. Her planning was inadequate. Lacking foresight, on the 18th day, the operation in the Earth realm ended in failure. Butterfly Fairy bit her lip hard. Every world destroying warship had an inspector envoy stationed on it, specifically responsible for recording all actions of the ship and making harsh evaluations of its commander. For a newly appointed chief like her, if she accumulated more than 3 negative evaluations, the leader would likely replace her without hesitation. This was her first time leading a mission, and she received a demerit right out of the gate. 2 more, and her career as the ninth chief would be completely finished.
Oh, little sister, how could you be so careless?
The formless sage of the double-faced clan smiled ambiguously and said in a bizarre tone, Big sister told you long ago, the position of ninth chief isn't easy to sit on, but you just wouldn't believe it. Butterfly Fairy shot her a fierce glare. As a newcomer commanding the Ninth Fleet, she naturally attracted the resentment of many, and the formless sage was one of them. Seeing her receive a demerit from the inspector envoy, the formless sage was naturally delighted, almost wanting to clap and cheer. Don't worry, Formless, Butterfly Fairy sneered mockingly. Even if I can't hold onto this Ninth Fleet, the position will never fall to an androgyne freak like you. Swish. Before the words faded, the formless sage's originally alluring female face suddenly twisted and transformed into a rather gloomy male visage, and her voice became eerily cold and sharp. Butterfly Fairy, just because your mother has some status, do you think you can disregard everyone else? Butterfly Fairy shot back. So what? If you're not convinced, go find a good mother to be reborn to. When it came to sharp tongues, she feared no one. The formless sage stared coldly at Butterfly Fairy, feeling both indignant and helpless against her. However, when her gaze shifted to Fang Chen behind Butterfly Fairy, that gloomy male face seemed to notice a flaw. At first she was taken aback, then the corners of her mouth slowly curled into a sinister and venomous sneer. She turned to the black-robed old woman and cupped her hands. Inspector Envoy, if a certain fleet harbors a mole according to the rules, how should it be dealt with? The black-robed old woman's turbid eyes abruptly narrowed, following her gaze like a venomous snake to fix on Fang Chen, and coldly replied, Naturally, the mole will be executed immediately, and the chief will be dismissed and investigated, never to command a fleet again. Butterfly Fairy raised an eyebrow and stepped her graceful figure forward, directly shielding half of Fang Chen's body. She stared coldly at the formless sage and demanded, Formless, what do you mean? He is Wang Chongxiao, merely disguised as Fang Chen. You and the Inspector Envoy have both seen him before. Butterfly Fairy's tone carried a sense of bafflement. She had reported to the Inspector Envoy about cooperating with Wang Chongxiao long ago. Why now, suddenly, was there suspicion that Wang Chongxiao was a mole? The formless sage's lips curled into a mocking arc. Heh, Butterfly Fairy, do you know how I got my Dao name, Formless? Butterfly Fairy frowned in disgust. Of course I know. You cultivate the formless way, allowing you to manifest any form you desire. This way was rather bizarre. The formless sage could not only exist in the form of any living being, but also transform into all things in heaven and earth. One blade of grass, one tree, one mountain, one stone, all could be simulated. She could manifest the forms of all things in heaven and earth, but had no form of her own, hence she was called formless. But this method was also quite bloody. To manifest the form of a certain living being, one must first steal that form. In other words, peeling off the other party's face to use as her own. That was also why Butterfly Fairy was so repulsed by her. Even though they were pirates and inevitably engaged in plunder, there was no need for such cruelty. The formless sage smirked darkly. Correct, so my sensitivity to the forms of all things in heaven and earth is extremely keen. I can confirm that the Wang Chongxiao before us is his real face. What? A gleam of light burst from the black-robed old woman's eyes, and her voice deepened slightly. Are you certain? The face before them was none other than the famous Fang Chen of the Middle Earth. Could it be that the real Fang Chen had infiltrated their Death Sound pirates? If this got out, how could the Ninth Fleet save face? The formless sage's eyes flickered with excitement. No mistake. He is Fang Chen himself. You're spouting nonsense, Butterfly Fairy suddenly shouted. I saw Wang Chongxiao come out of the Earth realm with my own eyes. You can't be saying that with the myriad heavens so vast. Fang Chen just happened to be in the Earth realm too. The formless sage wore a mocking expression. Butterfly Fairy, haven't you noticed that the current Wang Chongxiao's cultivation is different from before?
HM.
Butterfly Fairy truly hadn't checked. Now she released her senses and swept over Fang Chen, her gaze involuntarily changing, heavenly human fourth decay. When Wang Chongxiao went to the Earth Realm, he was clearly at the third decay of heavenly human, so why had he suddenly become the fourth decay? She abruptly retreated, putting distance between them, and demanded in a deep voice, "Who are you?" The gazes of the three sages converged into a terrifying pressure, and under their scrutiny, even the air simmered. A howling wind swept fiercely, whipping Fang Chen's black robe and tossing his dark hair, but he still maintained his composure with deadly calm. At this moment, if he showed even the slightest panic, what awaited him was an abyss of despair. Whether they would kill him was uncertain, but they definitely wouldn't let him off easy. He let out a heavy sigh and shook his head. "Fang Chen and I are mortal enemies, and yet you take me for him." As he spoke, his hand wiped across his face, peeling off a membrane as thin as a cicada's wing. This was the disguise mask he had confiscated from the real Wang Chongxiao. When he saw the formless sage, he had worried she would see through him, so he had quietly put on the mask without activating it. And the moment he pulled off the membrane, he secretly activated the ice crystal pendant, instantly transforming into Wang Chongxiao's appearance. Both disguise artifacts were activated simultaneously. No one would have thought that he alone possessed two high-grade disguise treasures capable of blocking the inspection of a three-calamities stage cultivator. In this way, as he completely removed the membrane, he revealed Wang Chongxiao's face. Fang Chen weighed the membrane in his hand and said lightly, "Formless sage, you know nothing about my disguise methods." The formless sage froze, exclaiming, "How can this be? My senses can even partially see through Kuei's realm instruments." "Wait, your current appearance is not real. You must have used a second disguise treasure. Let me search you, and the truth will be clear." In her fury, her originally alluring face abruptly switched to a gloomy male visage, her eyes flashing coldly as she reached out to grab Fang Chen through the air. "Enough!" Butterfly Fairy's pretty face turned cold as she cut in sharply. "First you said his real face was real, then you say he's fake. You can't do anything to me, so you take it out on my people, is that it?" The formless sage said heavily, "I am not lying, he is definitely in a disguised state right now." The black-robed old woman glanced sideways at her and asked coldly, "Are you saying he possesses two disguised treasures?" "A Kuei's realm disguise mask in the hands of a deity transformation cultivator is already unheard of." Even she, a cultivator of the two calamities realm, had to admit her own inferiority. Two treasures in the hands of a single deity transformation cultivator, is such a thing possible? The formless sage urgently said, "Inspector Envoy, I swear, he is definitely an imposter right now." A displeased look appeared on the old woman in black's face. She said in a deep voice, "If swearing oaths were useful, what need would there be for my office as Inspector Envoy? If you keep making trouble, beware that I will bring charges against you before the chief for slandering a ship's captain." The formless sage's heart was so stifled with frustration it was almost bursting. It was obvious the person before him was an imposter, yet no one believed him. What made him even more furious was that Fang Chen gave a leisurely sigh and said, "Formless, I never expected that you would stoop to such despicable methods just to seize control of the world, annihilating worship. Truly, the morals of this world have declined, Crackle. The formless sage's face was so dark, it seemed about to drip water. The air around her crackled and popped with the roiling, killing intent. Because of her extreme rage, her facial features had begun to distort slightly, and her already gloomy, sharp face now looked even more venomous. "Fine, just you wait. I'll make you understand what it means that it's easy to board a pirate ship, but hard to get off." Before her words finished, she used a teleportation spell and vanished. Watching the formless sage depart so resolutely, the old woman in black couldn't help but look at Fang Chen again with a meaningful gaze, reassessing him. She stared deeply at Fang Chen for a full 3 breaths, then finally turned ethereal and vanished. Fang Chen secretly breathed a sigh of relief. He had managed to bluff his way through for now, but as the formless sage had said, this Ninth Fleet was definitely no safe place. He needed to find a chance to slip away as soon as possible. "I'm sorry for doubting you earlier." The apologetic voice of Butterfly Fairy came from beside him. Fang Chen turned his head and saw Butterfly Fairy's eyes darting away, filled with guilt and a faint trace of worry. What she worried about was that this incident might affect their cooperation. Fang Chen waved his hand dismissively. I don't blame you. After all, my breakthroughs have been too fast. If I were you, I would have doubted me too. The hidden worry in Butterfly Fairy's heart suddenly dissipated, and she muttered to herself, so this Wang Chongxiao actually has such a generous side. I really underestimated him. She felt a wave of relief and said with a smile, then you'd better work hard. That bastard Fang Chen has already broken through to the 4 decline of Heavenly Man. He's now striving for the great venerable realm. Fang Chen's heart was suddenly filled with suspicion. The two of them hadn't seen each other since they parted near the Sumeru Divine Prison. Why did Butterfly Fairy speak as if she had just met him and even knew his cultivation level so clearly? Could it be that they had already met, but he simply hadn't noticed Butterfly Fairy's presence? All right, I won't disturb your meditation on the Tao. Come find me after you finish your seclusion, to prevent Formless from harming you. Butterfly Fairy cast a spell to undo the formation protecting the spring eye, then carefully admonished him. Fang Chen secretly praised her. This woman still had a bit of human warmth, unlike those ruthless pirates. Thank you. He immediately teleported into the spring eye. Butterfly Fairy then closed the formation, vanished into thin air, and went off to prepare for the coming plunder of mysterious Heaven World. If this operation failed again, her career as the 9th head would likely come to an end. Fang Chen sat down cross-legged, his body submerged in the shallow water of the pool. In the purple spiritual liquid, tiny specks of purple light slowly seeped into his body through the skin, bringing an instant cool, penetrating sensation that quietly surged through his heart. Fang Chen's consciousness then entered the altar. In a daze, he seemed to understand something, and an indistinct desire to continue ascending arose within him. But this enlightenment was too faint, and he still couldn't step onto the 4th step. The higher the hope, the greater the disappointment. Fang Chen sighed softly and reluctantly opened his eyes. The mysterious light specks in the pool water were too weak and dispersed throughout the pool. Even if he cultivated here for a month, he might not be able to absorb all of them. In 3 days, he probably couldn't even ascend a single step. While he was smiling bitterly to himself, suddenly he recalled a magical artifact he hadn't used in a long time. With a thought, the mountain and river cauldron appeared in his palm. The mountain and river cauldron, capable of condensing all things in heaven and earth. Come to think of it, this mountain and river cauldron had also been obtained from Wang Chongxiao. The current Enlightenment Spring was also occupied under the pretense of Wang Chongxiao's name. This guy really was his lucky star. With a try it and see attitude, he activated the mountain and river cauldron and absorbed all the purple spiritual liquid into it. Then he activated the cauldron to start condensing. Large patches of purple steam billowed up, while the precious light specks all settled at the bottom. Half a day later, the pervasive steam slowly dissipated, and a mass of light specks, the size of a fist, came into Fang Chen's view. Fang Chen's eyes locked onto that spot, and his gaze instantly turned incredibly excited. Almost instinctively, he grabbed all the light specks tightly in his palm. The moment these light specks merged into his body, countless chaotic insights burst forth like the strings of a vast orchestra played all at once, intertwining violently in his mind and causing an extremely intense shock. On his face, streaks of enlightened radiance flickered like lightning continuously. At this moment, deep within Fang Chen's consciousness, he was striding rapidly upward on that grand altar. He stepped steadily across the 4th step, then the 5th, and then the 6th. As his enlightenment deepened, his speed grew faster and faster. The 10th step was as smooth as a flat road to him, posing no difficulty at all. An ecstatic joy surged in Fang Chen's heart. If he could successfully condense this 5th domain, he would immediately become a contemporary Great Venerable. For him who had long prepared the Merit Divine Pearl thoroughly, he could then forge the Merit Divine Steel on the spot and attain the realm of Sage in one stroke. At that moment, he would be a true sage capable of controlling the universe. The vast power he could wield would be countless times greater than now. Time passed silently, bit by bit. Soon, the 7th step was under his foot, and the 8th and 9th were quickly crossed. Only the final step remained. The dancing flame at the top of the altar was now within reach. However, just as he took that final step at top speed, he crashed heavily into an invisible barrier. The outstretched foot was violently repelled by an irresistible force. What's going on? Fang Chen was shocked, his face filled with doubt and uncertainty. He could clearly feel that there were still quite a few light specks remaining inside him, continuously providing insights. Logically, they should have been enough to let him take that final step. Refusing to accept defeat, he tried again and again, but each time the situation was exactly the same. Until the purple light specks completely vanished from his body and the insights that had surged like a tide rapidly receded, he ultimately failed to take that step. Fang Chen abruptly opened his eyes, deep within them filled with unwillingness. I actually failed. At the same time, an intense unease quickly spread through his heart. That last step, which should have naturally succeeded, was forcibly blocked by an invisible force. Could this be the legendary iron rule that ancestral Tao cannot enter sagehood? With a bellyful of questions, Fang Chen willed slightly, and his entire person entered the spatial mirror within his robes. Inside the mirror world, Hua Xin was leisurely lying on a chair, flipping through a book, a straw dangling from her mouth as she casually sipped some spirit liquid she had conjured from who knows where. She looked utterly content and comfortable. On the other side, Rebel Boy was vigorously brandishing a small leather whip, fiercely lashing Ren Linglong, who was tied up like a silkworm cocoon. Talk, will you talk or not? Ren Linglong didn't move at all, but from her mouth, stuffed with a thick black radish, came incessant, muffled MMPH sounds. It was obvious without thinking that she must be cursing Rebel Boy. Fang Chen frowned at the sight and asked, has she confessed? It had been nearly a month since they left the heavens, yet this woman still refused to hand over the soul of the Fang Chen first-class pavilion master. Rebel Boy turned around with a wronged look and complained, Big brother, this old woman has become completely immune to the little whip. She even laughed at me, saying I'm not using my full strength. Woo woo woo. At these words, the veins on Fang Chen's forehead bulged and throbbed furiously. What an unbelievably arrogant eight-winged archangel. He raised his hand and beckoned toward the void, and the evolved divine wood instantly flew into his grasp. Without a word, he swung it and fiercely struck Linglong's stomach. Linglong's almond-shaped eyes instantly widened into full circles. Overcome with pain, she writhed wildly, letting out a series of high-pitched, agonized, muffled screams. A mist of tears instantly filled her eye sockets, making her look like she was about to cry from the pain. Fang Chen yanked out the radish stuffed in her mouth and said icily, do you still plan to keep resisting? The moment the radish was pulled out, before the flying spittle from Linglong's mouth could even hit the ground, she burst into a torrent of curses. You little bastard, you're finished completely and utterly finished. You will never obtain Zheoj in this lifetime. Unless I die. Fang Chen merely curled his lips indifferently and said lightly, then I'll just let you die. After saying this, he casually stuffed her mouth shut again, then directly tossed the divine wood to Fan Guzai. I'm leaving it to you. This divine wood was Fang Chen's most frequently used treasured artifact. Seeing it, Fan Guzai's eyes lit up with excitement. After snatching it, he advanced toward Linglong with a wicked chuckle, step by step. Watching Fan Guz, I approach, Linglong's pupils suddenly dilated. Her body writhed uncontrollably, and muffled panicked cries emerged from her mouth, clearly meaning for him not to come any closer. Fan Guz, I paid no heed. He spat fiercely onto both of his little palms, then gripped the divine wood tightly, raised it high, and with all his might brought it down with a savage strike. Agnair tilde. That long, absent, agonized scream once again echoed throughout the entire mirror space. By now, Fang Chen had arrived before Hua Xin, his expression clearly showing he was too embarrassed to ask. At the moment, the only person around him who could possibly advise on the predicament of the 5 decays of heaven and man was Hua Xin. Yet the thought of asking her, he could easily imagine the unbearably smug look she would sport. Hua Xin moved aside the book, blocking her face, rolled her clever eyes, and asked, You need something from me. Fang Chen's old face suddenly flushed red. He impulsively yanked her off the chair, then arrogantly leaned back onto it himself, crossed his legs, and said, You hole up here all day reading who knows what books. Let me test you. Hua Xin patted her skirt with an innocent look, pouted helplessly, and replied, Test me on what? Fang Chen cleared his throat and said, Here is the question. A human martial artist named Xiaming cultivated to the 4th decay of the heaven, man realm, but when trying to comprehend the 5th domain, he always falls short at the final step and can't cross it. Do you know why? Hua Xin pouted and secretly grumbled, Just say Xiaofan is Xiaofan, why bring up some Xiaming? But then she reconsidered, Forget it, since this bastard released my essence blood from that little leather whip, I'll help him just this once. So she answered without hesitation. Xiaming relied on external force to comprehend it, right. A sharp glint flashed in Fang Chen's eyes as he immediately pressed, Yes, is there a problem? His 3rd domain had indeed partly succeeded by relying on the lifelong experiences of the Grand Wine Master, but that shouldn't be a problem. Hua Xin casually replied, no wonder then. The fifth domain is the ultimate domain. To take that final step, one must achieve complete and profound enlightenment on their own. Any shortcuts are completely impossible. So that's how it is. A sudden realization dawned upon Fang Chen. It seemed his excessive haste had been self-defeating. Ultimately, he still needed to personally experience things and gain insights from them. After a pause, Fang Chen had intended to take the opportunity to ask about the fact that those of the ancestral Tao cannot enter sagehood, but the moment the thought arose, he immediately extinguished it. He still harbored a measure of wariness toward Hua Xin. The fewer people who knew about the ancestral Tao, the better. Fang Chen nodded, then shifted the topic. Good answer. Then he added now, the second question. Xiaming is being pursued by the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis. May I ask, how can Xiaming escape the pursuit? Hearing this, Hua Xin almost burst out laughing. On these central plains now, who doesn't know that Fang Chen is being chased by the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis? Was he not going to keep up the act anymore? However, the smile on her face slowly froze, then vanished completely. She then answered very seriously, hide in the three great realms and the divine capital. Aside from that, across the vastness of the myriad heavens, there is no place for Xiaming to hide. Fang Chen slowly straightened up, a serious expression involuntarily appearing on his face. The Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis has been committing atrocities for countless eons. Is there truly no one who can rein him in? He could hide in the three realms and the divine capital for a while, but could he hide there for a lifetime? Hua Xin answered without hesitation, if someone could rein him in, they would have stepped forward long ago. Over these 10,000 years, the people he has killed and the forces he has offended are already countless. But still, no one dares to intervene, because he was once an existence with one foot stepping into the saint realm. In an era where saints do not appear, no one can rival him. A look of shock appeared in Fang Chen's eyes as he pressed, 1 foot in the saint realm, how so? Hua Xin explained bluntly, it's exactly what it sounds like. He once had a great opportunity to step into the saint realm, but upon learning that after becoming a saint, he would be suppressed by the Tao slaves and have to fall into eternal slumber, he decisively gave up the opportunity to attain sainthood, and instead dominated the myriad heavens for 10,000 years as a sage. Fang Chen couldn't help but draw a sharp breath. No wonder this Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis was incomparably stronger than other experts of the same three calamities realm. This is practically an invincible combat strength beneath the Saint realm. Who else could compare? Pinning hopes on someone else killing the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis was likely just an unrealistic fantasy. His face full of unwillingness, he gritted his teeth and asked, is there truly no way to kill him? Fang Chen instinctively thought of his greatest current reliance, the primordial heaven, imprisoning gourd. But at present he could at most illuminate the yellow gourd. According to the artifact's description, the yellow gourd could capture and contain most sages. But this most definitely did not include the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis. If the opponent truly came knocking, Fang Chen would have absolutely no ability to resist. And once caught, he would be doomed to die. A trace of sympathy emerged in Hua Xin's eyes. For a single primal ancient command, the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis had launched a frenzied pursuit of Fang Chen. From the very moment he crossed his nascent soul tribulation, all the way to his present imminent entry into sagehood. This tribulation was truly more than enough. She sighed lightly and offered her advice. I suggest you enter the divine capital and never come out again. That way you can peacefully live out the rest of your life. Fang Chen clenched his fists tightly and said firmly, I refuse to believe there is nothing in heaven and earth that can kill him. Hua Xin shrugged indifferently, unless you have the ability to convince a saint to take action. But they would never risk their nearly endless lives for your sake. A single ferocious strike from a saint could indeed obliterate the Chaos Ancient Blood Marquis. But what would await that saint is the merciless execution by the Tao slaves. Which saint in this world would be willing to sacrifice themselves for Fang Chen? Hua Xin tilted her head slightly, as if recalling something, and added, alternatively, if an ancestral Tao sage were willing to help you, that might also be possible. Ancestral Tao sage. Fang Chen's heart suddenly pounded wildly, but he put on a puzzled expression and asked, what is the ancestral Tao? When Fang Chen had proven his Tao to attain the soul formation stage, and caused the cloud desolate ancient saint to proclaim to the world, Hua Xin was still inside the mirror and hadn't come out, unaware of the specific circumstances outside, much less that Fang Chen was that ancestral Tao. Hua Xin rolled her eyes and said irritably, "You can't even enlist a saint, so don't even dream about an ancestral Dao sage." People capable of comprehending the ancestral Dao were few even during the era of the great Kaian divine kingdom, let alone in these shattered myriad heavens of today. Fang Chen forcibly suppressed the wild ecstasy in his heart, feigned composure, cleared his throat and shouted, "Cough, who told you to blabber? I'm testing you. Tell me, what is the ancestral Dao?" Hua Xin scoffed disdainfully, "Tusk," then reluctantly explained, "The ancestral Dao is one of the 9 supreme absolute Daos between heaven and earth. Fail, and body dies and Dao vanishes. Succeed, and you may take a place among the 9 venerables of the cosmos, co-governing all under heaven with the great Dao." Fang Chen felt his ears roar incessantly, deafening and enlightening. The 9 heavenly venerables, co-ruling the world with the Dao. He was shaken to the core. Could walking the ancestral Dao to its end truly reach such heaven, defying heights? He ruthlessly suppressed the surging emotions in his heart and pressed on. Then why can an ancestral Dao sage kill the chaotic ancient blood Marquis? Does an ancestral Dao sage truly possess strength rivaling the saint realm? Hua Xin extended a small hand to rub her chin, laboriously recalling for a long while before speaking. "I don't remember it clearly, only vaguely, that ancestral Dao cultivators can hardly become sages, but once they do, they receive the great Dao's blessing. Every subsequent major realm breakthrough grants a Dao bestowal, bestowing a saintly power called primordial saint force. With this force, annihilating any powerhouse below the saint realm is as easy as flipping a hand." Bestowal of the great Dao, primordial saint force. Hearing this, Fang Chen's breathing unconsciously quickened. If he too could attain sagehood through the ancestral Dao, would he not immediately receive a Dao bestowal, gaining a chance to slay the great foe, the chaotic ancient blood Marquis? So that sliver of hope had never slipped away, but had always been grasped in his own hands. Attain sagehood. He must become a sage. No matter the cost, he must succeed at all costs. In a flash, Fang Chen had returned outside, yet his turbulent emotions long refused to calm. "I must comprehend the 5th domain as soon as possible," he murmured under his breath, taking several deep breaths. Once he had completely calmed down, he took out Wang Chongxiao's yellow club, examined it carefully, and casually stuck it into the purple crystal ore to nurture it. But whether this item, after a month of nurturing, could also undergo a thorough transformation like the divine would remain to be seen. Immediately after, Fang Chen flipped his palm and took out the immortal king's indestructible bell. After a month of meticulous repair by the artifact spirit, this supreme treasure had finally been restored to a flawless state. The bell's body radiated a snowy, holy luminescence, with ancient and mysterious rhythms constantly coursing over its surface. An unprecedented sense of security, as if it could withstand the collapse of heaven and earth, instantly surged into Fang Chen's heart. The artifact spirit squeezed its little head out from the bell, looking at Fang Chen eagerly, and asked, good master, are you going to use me? Do you want me to protect you?" Just one last time protecting Fang Chen, and this little spirit would be completely free. At this moment, it wished a giant meteor. I would immediately crash down on Fang Chen's head, so it could heroically save its master, then pat its bottom and vanish without a trace. Fang Chen smiled and shook his head. "Not now. I'm very safe at the moment." This little thing, whose belly was paler than its face, did he not know what it was scheming in its heart? Unless it was a desperate situation among desperate situations, he would never let this little creature get its wish. Fang Chen changed the subject and asked, "I called you out just to ask, without Saint Realm empowerment, what kind of attacks can you really withstand?" The artifact spirit tilted its head and thought, then seriously answered, "With a Saint's empowerment, this bell can easily block Saint Realm assaults, without empowerment, below the Saint Realm."
Damn!
Fang Chen's eyes shone with excitement. This number 1 defensive artifact of the celestial realm was so fierce that even without anyone activating it, it possessed might virtually unbreakable below the Saint Realm. Recalling when he first obtained this broken bell, even the attack of the Northern Snow Asura Emperor couldn't be fully blocked by the bell. He himself, hiding inside, was shaken to the point of wildly vomiting tomato juice. From this perspective, wouldn't the attacks of the chaotic ancient blood Marquis also be stably blocked? This was an absolute trump card for saving his life. Fang Chen's heart settled. Encountering the chaotic ancient blood Marquis, at least he wouldn't be instantly killed in a single exchange. He chuckled and reassured, "All right, when I'm in danger, I'll definitely call you out." The artifact spirit happily nodded its head and, with a whoosh, shrank back in. Fang Chen inwardly laughed. Little thing, if I really let you leave so easily, would I still be Fang Chen? He put away the Immortal King's indestructible bell, then took out a fragment that had fallen off from the Earth Realm's world embryo. This was the greatest harvest from this journey to the Earth Realm. Whether the Void Flow Earth Force could ultimately be cultivated to perfection depended entirely on this fragment. He immediately sat cross-legged, greedily absorbing the Earth origin source constantly flowing from it, and silently began to comprehend. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Earth origin source, flowing from the fragment, had been completely absorbed by Fang Chen. It still needed to settle for some time before it could release more essence. And Fang Chen's 2 days of cultivation had already yielded significant achievements. Open, with a low shout, 3 completely different meridians simultaneously emerged in his body. 1, a pale meridian, where void flow, thunder force coursed. 1, a fiery red meridian, where void flow, fire force flowed. And the last one, an earthy yellow meridian surging with void flow earth force. Compared to the first 2, however, the void flow earth force meridian was noticeably dimmer, clearly only cultivated to the minor accomplishment stage. A hint of excitement he couldn't conceal appeared in Fang Chen's eyes. 5 forces unite, void heaven, great completion. When that time comes, while saints do not emerge, invincible under heaven. Now, of the 5 forces, he had already obtained 3. Even though the Void Flow Earth Force was only at minor accomplishment, if fused with Void Flow Thunder Force and Fire Force, the union of 3 forces would surely undergo another thorough transformation in power. He was eager to find a target to test the fused might. Buzz! At that moment, the world, destroying warship, jolted violently, and the void airwaves surged around it, retreating to both sides. Fang Chen's eyes flickered. The warship stopped. It seems we are arriving at the profound sky realm. He immediately left the Enlightenment Spring, and to be absolutely safe, decisively activated the heart of Myriad Earth, teleporting far away. Not long after he left, in a mountain range not far from the Enlightenment Spring, the mountain body trembled eerily, and the formless sage slowly revealed himself from invisibility. Now wearing a sinister and fierce male face, he furiously punched the mountain beside him into pieces, roaring in a low voice, "What a cunning brat." He had been lying in ambush nearby for over 2 whole days, waiting precisely for the moment Fang Chen emerged from seclusion. Logically, Fang Chen should have been at his most relaxed and off guard, but who would have thought this kid was craftier than a 1,000-year fox and actually slipped away directly? The formless sage snorted coldly, a cold light flashing in his eyes. "HMPH, the show is far from over. I'll make you understand that boarding the ship of our death-sound pirates is no easy feat." At the bow of the ship, Fairy Butterfly stood with her hands behind her back, gazing at the world that should have been lush and verdant not far away. Her delicate brows furrowed tightly as she murmured, "The profound sky realm has been ravaged by ancient blood demons to such a state. It was reputed to be the most beautiful world among the myriad heavens. In times past, the profound sky realm had endless grasslands and forests, with countless divine palaces and immortal pavilions suspended in the sky. Majestic scenery, ethereal immortal aura. It was a pastoral world that countless people yearned for, and even Fairy Butterfly had once visited out of admiration. But now the grasslands and forests were all burned to ashes, turning into billowing smoke. The suspended celestial palaces had fallen one after another, now empty. As far as the eye could see, ferocious ancient blood demons were everywhere, wantonly devouring helpless mortals and solitary martial artists. The profound sky realm had completely fallen. Fang Chen slowly emerged from beneath the earth, and as he looked at the apocalyptic scene before him, his pupils involuntarily contracted. Had he come too late? A heavy sense of self-blame instantly welled up in his heart. If he hadn't delayed in the ice realm for half a month cultivating, could the profound sky realm have been saved? Looking at the survivors below who were being devoured by the ancient blood demons, Fang Chen asked in a low voice, "Are we still going to plunder according to plan?" Fairy Butterfly hesitated. In the profound sky realm's heyday, plundering a bit without harming its vitality would have been fine. But now, the remaining living beings of the profound sky realm were barely clinging to life, deeply trapped in the misery of imminent extinction. How could she bear to loot a burning house? Swoosh! The formless sage rushed over swiftly. Upon seeing the miserable state of the profound sky world, excitement immediately flickered in his eyes. Does that mean their world embryo is unguarded right now? We can seize it while we have the chance. However, when he noticed the unusually grave looks on Fairy Butterfly and Fang Chen, His eyes shifted slyly, and he said in a sardonic tone, "What's wrong, Fairy Butterfly? Don't tell me you want to give up the plundering mission on the profound sky world as well." Fairy Butterfly bit her red lips tightly, her heart struggling fiercely. If she failed again, she would certainly receive a negative evaluation from the Inspector Envoy. After 2 consecutive world plunders ending like this, how could the leader possibly give Fairy Butterfly another chance to command the 9th Fleet? But to plunder these pitiful people, she truly could not bring herself to do it. Fang Chen's expression was equally terrifyingly grim. If the 9th Fleet truly intended to exploit this opportunity to bully the beings of the profound sky world, what should he do? Stand against the entire ship alone. Not to mention the 5 sages before him, but deep within the warship there was also a Two-Calamity Realm expert stationed, or perhaps someone even stronger. Just as he was pondering, suddenly a crack door opened within the profound sky world. A sage, level expert, his body wreathed in black yin energy, peered out, warily scanning the outside world. Immediately, his figure flickered and vanished without a trace. Fang Chen narrowed his eyes, and a bone-chilling cold surged from the depths of his heart, the dark Asura clan of the southern heaven world. That woman Tianji led her remnants here to the profound sky world. The one who just showed himself was unmistakably an Asura emperor, one of the 5 Asura emperors who followed Tianji into the void back then. Fang Chen had a very deep impression of him. In that case, the fall of the profound sky world was likely inseparable from Tianji and her Asura emperors. The formless sage sneered and pressed Fairy Butterfly. "Are you giving up the mission?" Fairy Butterfly bit down hard on her red lips, unable to make a decision for a long time. Fang Chen's eyes shifted as he said firmly, "Of course we're going. We're not just going to plunder, we're going to plunder them ruthlessly." For others, Fang Chen might feel sympathy. But for the Dark Asura Emperors, he had not a shred of sympathy, especially since they had a hand in the destruction of the profound sky world. Fairy Butterfly was briefly taken aback. Seeing the flickering look Fang Chen gave her, she hesitated for a moment. In the end, she steeled her heart and declared loudly, "Fine, we'll go." The formless sage's expression suddenly stiffened. Fairy Butterfly was actually going to insist on her own way, and his schemes instantly fell apart. He couldn't help but look coldly at Fang Chen. It was all this brat's suggestion that persuaded Fairy Butterfly. The formless sage smiled mirthlessly and said darkly, "Wang Chongxiao, since you helped Fairy Butterfly make this decision, then you must also accompany us into the profound sky world to plunder." Fairy Butterfly furrowed her brows and immediately refused firmly. "No need. Wang Chongxiao is not one of our pirates. He doesn't need to act with us. If Wang Chongxiao acted alongside them, he would be identified as a member of the Death Sound Pirates. Once word spread, there would be no place for him anywhere in the myriad worlds of the heavens. Every world would forbid him entry." The formless sage was clearly trying to harm him on purpose. Fang Chen looked askance at the formless sage, sneering inwardly. This is what they mean by easy to board a pirate ship. Hard to get off, isn't it? The Death Sound pirates had been plundering for 10,000 years, notorious and reviled across the heavens, their enemies spread across 100 worlds. If the champion Marquis joined the Death Sound pirates, it would certainly cause an uproar throughout the myriad heavens and 100 worlds. And what would follow soon after was universal condemnation. Apart from the Middle-earth, he probably wouldn't find even an inch of shelter anywhere else. However, right now, he was Wang Chongxiao, and the ones he would be killing were the Dark Asura clan, infamous for their treachery. Fang Chen gave Fairy Butterfly a gentle smile and said firmly, "Fairy Butterfly, since we have already reached a cooperation, I shall naturally do my humble best to help you fully. Take command of the 9th Fleet. I'll enter the profound sky world with you." He wanted to use the power of the Death Sound pirates to deliver a grand gift to Tianji. Fairy Butterfly was slightly surprised. Was the person before her truly the Wang Chongxiao she knew? He was upright and fearless, even before a great sage of myriad forms. And he stuck to the agreement, not hesitating to ruin his own reputation. Compared to when they first met, he was practically a different person. For a moment, she couldn't help doubting whether the formless sage's accusations were true. But she immediately snuffed out that thought fiercely. She cursed inwardly. That bastard Fang Chen is even more shameless than Wang Chongxiao. Just thinking about how Fang Chen had treated her inside the Sumeru divine prison made her blood boil. She cast a grateful glance at Wang Chongxiao and said softly, "Thanks." Though Wang Chongxiao's strength wouldn't help her much. His goodwill was priceless. She flipped her palm, and a small black boat appeared. She solemnly instructed, if you encounter danger, activate this boat. It will bring you back to the world, ending worship. As she spoke, she coldly glanced at the formless sage. Fang Chen's eyes lit up. He had seen Binks in use such a flying boat before, and he had coveted it for a long time. He gratefully accepted it, and quickly thanked her. Many thanks, Fairy Butterfly. The moment he took the small boat, detailed information about the little black boat surfaced in his mind. This boat was a lifeboat paired with the world, ending worship, originating from the era of the Great Kayan Divine Kingdom 10,000 years ago. The original intent of its creation was to allow those on board to flee as quickly as possible after the world, ending worship capsized. Thus, it possessed unparalleled defensive power and speed in traversing the void. In a short time, it could withstand attacks of the Two Calamity Realm, and its speed also reached that level. In other words, it was practically an extra big black dog for free. Fairy Butterfly nodded gently and removed a special spatial storage device from her neck, engraved with a tree seal. She silently recited 3 completely different unlocking incantations, and only then did the storage device slowly open. A delicate horn, carved from black jade, flew out from within. Fairy Butterfly grasped it, took a deep breath, and solemnly commanded into the horn, members of the 9th Fleet, assemble. Mission, plunder the profound sky world. Prioritize natural resources, then others' belongings, and the old and weak last. Note, no rape, no massacring cities, no trafficking of people. Do not kill without cause unless in danger. From within the world, ending worship, the auras of tens of thousands of nascent soul and spirit transformation cultivators suddenly erupted. Like a horde of ravenous locusts, they stirred restlessly. Fang Chen couldn't help but look at Fairy Butterfly with newfound respect. By all rights, Fairy Butterfly, who grew up among the Death Sound pirates, should have witnessed the deepest darkness and treachery of the world. Killing, rape, pillaging, torture, these brutal acts of pirates should have been ingrained throughout her life. Yet she had instead developed a heart of compassion. Describing her as emerging unstained from the mire could not be more fitting. If the 9th Fleet truly needed a person in charge, Fang Chen hoped that person would be Fairy Butterfly, and not a ruthless figure like the formless sage. His earlier offer to help her had been nothing but empty words. Now he truly wanted to help her in a real way. Just then, a slight sound of tearing air suddenly rang out. The old woman in the black skirt rushed over quickly, holding a jade slip, her tone full of warning. For the world, ending worship to mobilize for a month. It requires 1,000 Great Kayan Divine Coins. If the value of what you plunder does not reach 1,000 Great Kayan Divine Coins, this expedition will be considered a failure. Understand? 1,000 coins? If Fang Chen remembered correctly, Kiki had once mentioned the value of Great Kayan Divine Coins. 10,000 Great Kayan Divine Coins were equivalent to the value of a single world artifact. 1,000 coins, that's the equivalent of a broken world artifact. Plundering a world that had already been scavenged by others, yet hoping to gain 1,000 Great Kayan Divine Coins without harming ordinary people, was likely as difficult as ascending to heaven. Unless they could round up Tianji and her 5 Asura emperors in one fell swoop. Fairy Butterfly also looked solemn. The mission was truly incredibly arduous. But in order to take command of the 9th Fleet, she could only give it her all. Not long after, a number of small and medium-sized warships laden with pirates headed majestically toward the profound sky world to attack. Fairy Butterfly and the other sages, just like the 3rd Fleet, had a spirit transformation cultivator carry them into the world secretly. Tens of thousands of pirates, like a torrential downpour, poured down from dozens of void fissures. Fairy Butterfly emerged from her life space pocket, holding the horn, and commanded the pirates with majestic authority, spread out and move. After saying that, she looked sideways at Fang Chen beside her and asked, "Will you act freely or follow me?" Fang Chen was still preoccupied with expelling the ancient blood demons from this place, so he naturally had to act alone. He shook his head slightly and smiled. "Your main target is the world embryo, right? Then I won't get involved. I'll go find some treasures on my own." Butterfly Fairy nodded. She also hoped Wang Chongxiao could keep his distance from them to avoid as much as possible tainting him with the stigma of joining the Death Sound pirates. She quietly cautioned, "Be careful, let's go." Then she called out to the group of sages and faded into nothingness. Fang Chen then grasped the heart of Myriad Earth, perceiving the whole world state in detail. He discovered that in the southeastern corner of the Xuantian realm, there was an unusually dense concentration of heartbeats, accounting for nearly 30% of all living beings' heartbeats. His brows slightly raised, secretly startled and suspicious. Could it be that there are still strong ones in the Xuantian realm resisting? His eyes suddenly lit up, and he immediately activated the heart of Myriad Earth. Not long after, he emerged from the earth, covered in blood and mud. Looking around, the land that should have been lush green grass was now stained into a scarlet mud marsh by blood. Massive, ferocious looking corpses of blood demons emitted a pungent stench of decay. Remains of Xuantian realm beings, bearing wood, like textures or flower imprints, lay scattered haphazardly across the battlefield. Some had been gnawed to the point of intestines spilling out, some only had broken limbs left, and some still maintained the posture of mutual destruction with the ancient blood mons, their faces frozen with endless grief and indignation before death. Swarming flies buzzed in circles, packs of wild dogs reveled freely. Though Fang Chen had personally experienced the war of the ancient blood demons and witnessed countless human tragedies, he still felt a bone-chilling sorrow at this moment. These damned ancient dark beings. Suddenly, a long, mournful howl, filled with grief and indignation, abruptly pierced the firmament. The fall of Xuantian, all because of me, all because of me. The words overflowed with immense self-reproach and desolation. Fang Chen cast the selfless purification art and instantly flashed over. They saw boundless ancient blood demons, like a surging sea of blood. In the very center of the sea of blood, a forest actually stood. Towering trees layered outward in rings. The trees madly waved their roots, releasing deadly toxins, or flying out thousands of leaves to kill incoming enemies. The ancient blood demons fell in droves, but compared to that demon army, like a sea of blood, these great trees were like a lone doomsday ship in a vast ocean, liable to capsize at any moment. Amidst the circle of giant trees, a tall, flame-red, beautiful tree was particularly eye-catching. Atop its crown, it bore a red fruit similar to a human womb. Through the thin skin of the fruit, one could clearly see an infant resembling a human being gestating within. The infant struggled non-stop, as if desperately trying to break out of the shell. This strange great tree was actually giving birth, and all the surrounding trees were desperately guarding the mother and child. Fang Chen suddenly understood. This Xuantian realm was originally a world dominated by wood element beings. The surviving strong ones of Xuantian realm were using their broken bodies to protect a newborn to the death. That tree they saw was surging with the last of their life essence. With the calamity of extermination upon them and the world about to shatter, they did not flee for their lives, but gave their final hope of life to a clan member not yet born. Just as someone once asked Fang Chen, for mere mortals, risking your life to battle ancient giants to the death, is it worth it? At this moment, the same question surged in Fang Chen's heart. For a single infant, gambling the entire race's final future, is it truly worth it? Rumble. From deep in the sky, a muffled bang suddenly erupted, as if the heavens had snapped a backbone. A pitch-black towering tree, wrapped in smoke and firelight, crashed down from the sky. Its trunk cracked inch by inch, its lush branches and leaves withered and scattered, most bare branches already burnt. On the remaining roots, eerie purple flames still crackled and burned, roasting it into a charred stick. With another shaking rumble, the black tree smashed heavily beside the slender blood-red tree. Its massive body rapidly contracted, transforming into a stalwart man in black. On the man's body surface, mysterious golden wood, grain textures shimmered, and on his forehead, a mark of 9 leaves was imprinted. But those 9 leaves were mostly damaged, only 1 or 2 barely remaining. The 9 leaf mark, similar to the 9, Sun Giant Emperor 9, Prison Asura Emperor 9, Wing Archangel, was a sign of stepping into the Sage Realm. The man before them was actually a 9th rank sage, or at least once was. At this moment, his body was shattered like a rag doll, brutally torn by a pack of wild dogs, riddled with holes. His 9th rank sage aura had dwindled to near imperceptibility, life force rapidly ebbing away like the tide. The purple flames coiling around his legs were like gangrene that clings to the bone, sizzling as they spread over his entire body, reducing everything they touched to black charcoal. Just then, blood plasma churned in the sky above. A massive blood demon emperor, treading surging waves of blood, landed menacingly from the sky. Its bloodthirsty eyes shot out terrifying, ferocious gleam. Its mouth chewed on branches it had viciously bitten off from the 9th rank wood being, and it revealed an utterly relishing expression, cackling hideously. I have finally tasted the flesh and blood of the 9-leaf wood emperor. Just as the legends say, flesh like immortal brew, truly too delicious. The nine-leaf-wood emperor glared at it with grief and indignation, his eyes full of unwilling resentment. If I hadn't trusted the wrong people, betrayed at the most crucial moment, you would have long ago been driven back to your lair by me, like 1,000 years ago. The Sun-Blood Demon Emperor swallowed the flesh in its mouth, its eyes showing a savage grin. Heroes are judged only by success or failure. The process is meaningless. Your flesh and blood I will definitely have. As it spoke, its greedy gaze suddenly lifted, looking toward that slender blood, red tree, undisguised greed surging in its eyes, and your wife and child, even purer than your flesh. And blood, I also. Before it finished speaking, a cold female voice came from above, interrupting it. According to the agreement, that mother and child belong to me. Then, above the Sun-Blood Demon Emperor's head, a human-looking woman who had just stepped into the Asura King realm came pacing over with hands behind her back. Her looks were very beautiful, her gaze sharp and penetrating, as if she could see straight through hearts. To her left and right, 5 Asura emperors followed closely. It was none other than Tianji, who had escaped from the southern celestial realm, and those 5 Asura emperors. In Tianji's hands, she held a jar of leaping purple flames. Clearly, the purple fire that caused the 9-leaf-wood emperor's great defeat was precisely from Tianji's hand. The Sun-Blood Demon Emperor rolled its eyes upward, scarlet vicious light flashing abruptly. Tianji, unhurried, said calmly, "Below the world embryo, I have set up a great formation. If I die, the formation will activate and take the world embryo into eternal nothingness. If you don't want to end up with a useless, empty world, you'd best abide by the agreement." A trace of violent, killing intent flashed in the Sun-Blood Demon Emperor's eyes, but it ultimately suppressed it. They had thrown the entire world's forces, paying any price to conquer the Xuantian realm, not just to eat 2 people. There was no need to add risk for the 9-leaf-wood emperor's wife and child. With a cold face, it squeezed out a few words through gritted teeth. "Take them and get the hell out of the Xuantian realm immediately." Tianji put away the purple fire, smiling faintly. "Many thanks to the Sun-Blood Demon Emperor for your compliance." She then looked toward the 9-leaf-wood emperor, and finding him staring at her with eyes of incomparable hatred, Tianji's expression remained indifferent. The strong prey on he weak, strength is the truth. If you want to resent your own lack of strength. The 9-leaf-wood emperor clenched his teeth, due to extreme hatred. Traces of bright red blood seeped from his gums. He hated Tianji, but even more, hated himself. When Xuantian realm resisted the ancient blood demons, it was originally evenly matched. They only needed to wait for Fang Chen to bring the war-free tablet, and could have turned the tide. But he had been too impatient, to the point of trusting these Dark Asura clan. The sages who had returned from the Middle Continent, many clan members, even his wife, had advised him that the Dark Asura clan had a history of collaborating with ancient dark beings in the southern celestial realm, and could never be trusted. But Tianji still used various means to dispel his doubts, and over the past half-month, let their emperors come in one by one. At first, they indeed fought the ancient blood demons very hard, and with their help, the Xuantian realm army once saw a counteroffensive posture. But at the most critical moment, they all turned traitor and dealt a devastating blow to their own wood emperor of the mystic heaven realm. The outcome was predictable. 1,000 years ago, the scene of the 10 sins of the Central Plains betraying the Middle Earth was reenacted once again. Only, the mystic heaven realm could not hold out like the Middle Earth did. Their experts were slaughtered almost to the last, leaving only these before us. The 9-leaf-wood emperor had no heart left to curse Tianji. Everything was already in vain. Trembling, he extended his hand and pressed it against the base of the slender red tree, whispering with shame, "Red Willow, you and the child take care of yourselves." As the words fell, the last 2 leaf marks on his forehead abruptly shattered, transforming into an immensely powerful surge of green energy that violently surged into the red tree. In an instant, that womb received a power beyond all precedent, emitting a flickering, unstable radiance. Inside, the infant struggled fiercely, longing to break through the barrier and emerge. The 9-leaf-wood emperor, right before his death, was imparting his life's cultivation to his child. And he himself, his eyes utterly losing their luster, his aura dissipated completely. Only his hollow eyes still gazed upon the red tree beside him and his child. These were the things he could not let go of, the very last, in his dying moments. Tianji's eyes flashed, and she coldly shouted, "Stop the child from emerging. It will burrow into the earth and be nearly impossible to find again." The Sun-Blood Demon Emperor sneered. How could I allow him to have his wish? It suddenly opened its mouth, and a crimson long tongue shot out like a sharp arrow, hurtling toward the womb. However, when the tongue was halfway there, as if sensing something, it abruptly retracted, looking toward a certain direction as if facing a formidable enemy, and sharply shouted, "Who's there?" Tianji glanced sidelong, and her brow arched slightly. A formidable expert. For someone to hide nearby for so long, only to be discovered now by the Nine, Sun Blood Demon Emperor, and even be so feared by it. The gaze of the Nine, Sun Blood Demon Emperor, caused that space to tremble violently. Fang Chen's concealment technique was abruptly broken, revealing his form. Wang Chongxiao. Tianji was slightly surprised. Having been with Fang Chen for so long, how could she not know of the existence of this unique individual, Wang Chongxiao? She just hadn't expected to encounter him here. Fang Chen did not look at anyone at this moment. He merely silently gazed at the Nine, Leaf Wood Emperor.
Perhaps it was because he himself was soon to become a father.
Watching the Nine, Leaf Wood Emperor, even in his last moments, guarding his wife and child, an indescribable sorrow rose in his heart. He was not a good king, nor necessarily a good husband, but he wanted to be a good father. Fang Chen's gaze slowly shifted, coldly fixing on Tianji, and he said, word by word, "You truly deserve to die." A flicker of astonishment passed through Tianji's eyes. She did not recall having any grudge against Wang Chongxiao. Why did he hate her so much? A trace of contemplation swiftly crossed her eyes. But the Five Hells Asura Emperor beside her revealed a murderous glare and shouted fiercely, "A man from Middle-earth. Fang Chen ruined our third princess's grand plan, and as his kinsman, you dare appear before us." The cold light in Fang Chen's eyes deepened, and he said icily, "Then I shall ruin it once more." The Five Hells Asura Emperor sneered, "Just you alone at the fourth decline of the heaven, man." Fang Chen expressionlessly took out the true steel and said indifferently, "Is this enough?" The moment the true steel appeared, the Nine, Sun Blood Demon Emperor's eyes trembled violently, and he cried out in terror, "True steel. How do you have the true steel?" No wonder it had felt such intense unease earlier. It turned out this hidden man held such a weighty artifact. If even it was so uneasy, what of the ancient blood demons madly attacking the forest? They all halted in shock and fear, restless, and the tree beings that were about to collapse were finally able to catch their breath. The Five Hells Asura Emperor's face instantly froze. "Fang Chen's true steel, how is it in your hands?" Just as they were filled with suspicion, a faint sigh drifted through the air. Tianji said slowly, "So it is you, Fang Chen. You really are a lingering ghost, aren't you? If we speak of who in Middle-earth wanted her dead, there were simply too many. But if we say who wanted to kill her the most, without a doubt, it was Fang Chen. Thus, from the very beginning, she had been suspecting whether the Wang Chongxiao before her was the real one. Once the true steel came out, the answer was self-evident. Fang Chen said coldly, "You want to take that infant, dream on." He decisively activated the true steel. As long as the ancient blood demons were expelled from the battlefield, the enemy would be left with only 5 Asura Emperors, and it would not be so easy to break through the last defense of the wood spirits. "You dare!" The 5 Hells Asura Emperor, seeing this, immediately let out a thunderous roar of fury. You must know, beyond the heavens, the silhouettes of the Death Sound pirates were already faintly visible, and they could charge in at any moment. Without the aid of the Blood Demon army, relying only on a few Asura Emperors, they might not be able to withstand the enemy's onslaught. At that moment, the 9, Sun Blood Demon Emperor also let out an anxious, explosive roar. "Stop." Before the words had even fully fallen, his long tongue, brimming with icy killing intent, shot through the air, aiming directly for Fang Chen's vital point between his brows, intent on killing him prematurely. Their ancient blood demon clan had paid such a heavy price, just barely glimpsing the hope of seizing the mystic heaven. How could they be easily driven away by a mere truce steel? Amidst this chaotic roaring, only Tianji slowly closed her eyes. She knew Fang Chen too well. This man never did anything without certainty. Since he dared to bring out the truce steel in public, how could he easily allow anyone to disrupt it? Just as expected. At that very moment, the true steel was fully activated, and a single word filled with supreme majesty, akin to a heavenly decree, "Begone," erupted like layer upon layer of muffles, thunderclouds booming out in all directions. On the ground, the ancient blood demons that had been madly slaughtering moments ago now seemed to sense some kind of bane deep within their bloodlines, scattering and fleeing in panic, completely ignoring the wood spirits right at hand. In the firmament, the several blood demon emperors were equally full of shock and suspicion, and without waiting for the order from the 9, Sun Giant Emperor, they had already trod. NS formed into blood, red light, and fled ahead of him. The army collapsed, morale crumbled, and the 9, Sun Giant Emperor, was powerless to reverse the situation. Furthermore, the terrifying pressure radiating from the truce steel was still intensifying. He could only grind his teeth to dust, and with unwillingness filling his heart, utter his final venomous roar, "Fang Chen, you human! I curse you, when the dark tide descends, may your body be shattered to pieces, and your soul utterly annihilated." Having said this, he dared not linger for a moment longer, decisively turned, and retreated in a sorry state. The battlefield that had been thundering with war cries just moments ago was now left with only the dark Asura Emperor and the wood spirits facing off. At this time, Fang Chen's figure flickered gently, and he silently positioned himself in front of the wood spirits. With his back to the crowd, he asked in a deep voice, "On your side, how many emperors still hold the line?" Only a soft rustling of branches and leaves came from behind, and in the forest, 3 trees that were clearly much sturdier than their kin rapidly transformed into humanoid formed, with delicate wood grain textures on their bodies. Upon closer inspection, one could see leaves on their foreheads, though the number varied from 5 to 1. The once prosperous wood spirit clan, at this moment, actually had only 3 wood emperors left. Thankfully, one of them was a 5, leaf wood emperor, and although his injuries looked extremely severe, he could still barely withstand the onslaught of the 5 Hells Asura Emperor. Were it not for him holding the line, the moment the 5 Hells Asura Emperor made a move, the wood spirits would likely be slaughtered in an instant. At this moment, Tianji slowly opened her eyes, the depths of her gaze glinting with calm and profundity, and she issued a sharp, incisive order: "Forget those wood emperors. Concentrate your strength and kill Fang Chen first." Others might not know, but she was well aware of Fang Chen's trump cards and methods. A primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, a single primordial seed. These were deadly artifacts that could overturn the battle in an instant. If Fang Chen was given even a moment's respite to unleash them, they would become unstoppable weapons of absolute slaughter. Upon hearing this, Fang Chen's expression subtly changed. As expected of Tianji, even faced with a sudden upheaval, she could maintain absolute calm, showing not the slightest panic. He made a swift decision, immediately activating the heart of Myriad Earth. The space around him began to blur and warp as he prepared to retreat, avoiding the brunt of their attack. Just then, the red willow tree rooted to the ground slightly swayed its branches, transmitting an urgent message through a secret method that only wood spirits could understand. In an instant, with 3 swift whooshes, the 3 wood emperors also acted without hesitation, instantly flashing forward to block in front of Fang Chen. The 5, leaf wood emperor leading the group, slowly turned his head. His eyes were filled with sorrow and determination as he looked at Fang Chen and said, "Little brother of the human race, the Empress asked me to relay her thanks to you for traveling thousands of miles to save the living beings of Xuanshan." As he spoke, his tone grew even heavier. "But you must leave now. Do not concern yourself with her. She and the Wood Emperor's child had nothing to do with you to begin with." If Fang Chen left alone, how could the 3 Wood Emperors before him possibly hold off the combined assault of the 5 Asura Emperors? The outcome was destined to be destruction, with no hope of survival. The child that the 9, Leaf Wood Emperor had protected with his last strength would most likely fall into Tianji's hands in the end. Thinking of this, Fang Chen looked deeply at the soon-to-be-born wood spirit progeny, his gaze gradually becoming utterly resolute. He said in a low voice, "I am about to become a father myself. Consider this act today as accumulating some good fortune for my unborn child." With that, he flipped his hand and took out the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd. The yellow area on the gourd was now glowing with brilliant, dazzling radiance. "Since I'm seeing this through to the end, I'll help you once more." Fang Chen clenched his teeth and spoke in a deep shout. "Senior Wood Emperors, please hold them off for me for a moment." As soon as the words left his mouth, he aimed the mouth of the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd at Tianji. This woman was the core strategist among these Asura Emperors. If he could capture her, the remaining 5 Asura Emperors would lose their unified command, and their offensive would inevitably collapse. However, Tianji seemed to have anticipated this move. Her expression unchanged, she sneered unhurriedly, "If I am captured, you need not bother with Fang Chen anymore. Strike directly and kill that mother and child." Since Fang Chen had come to protect the mother and child, she would strike at the heart of the matter, forcing him to hold back for fear of harming them. Fang Chen's gaze suddenly darkened, murderous intent congealing sharply in his eyes. "This Tianji." At this moment, he actually felt a sense of difficulty reminiscent of when he had faced Hong Xiu. The 9, Leafwood Emperor had been deceived by her step by step. It couldn't entirely be blamed on his gullibility. This woman's schemes were simply too deep and sophisticated. Fang Chen then looked at the other 5 Asura Emperors. He knew nothing of their names, so the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, could not be activated against them. It seemed he could only brace himself and fight a tough battle. As long as he could stall them for a while, until the Death Sound pirates' forces arrived, he could use those pirates to deal with the Asura Emperors. With that thought, he abruptly put away the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd, and declared loudly, "Even without this Gourd, I can still kill you." The 5 Hell Asura Emperor stared fixedly at Fang Chen, cold killing intent swirling in his eye sockets. "Kill us, it's only been a mere month. Could your strength have skyrocketed against the heavens?" Finishing his words, he barked out his orders. "I will personally kill the 5 Leaf Wood Emperor, send 3 to kill the other 3 Wood Emperors, and leave 1 3 Hell Asura Emperor and 1 Hell Asura Emperor to jointly surround and kill Fang Chen." In his view, given Fang Chen's strength, he could at most handle a 1 Hell Asura Emperor. During the battle in the Southern Heaven Realm, Fang Chen's great fight with the Nether King had already laid bare his true combat power. Now with a 3 Hell Asura Emperor personally making a move to kill him, it was more than enough. Tianji nodded lightly, approving the arrangement, and urged, "Finish it quickly, we don't have much time." The killing intent within the 5 Hell Asura Emperor erupted instantly. With a great wave of his hand, he led 4 Asura Emperors and charged out ferociously. The 3 Wood Emperors simultaneously showed resolute expressions, knowing full well that this battle meant certain death. As they made their final preparations, they couldn't help but look back one last time at the red willow tree. Then, without a word, they roared and charged to meet the formidable enemies. In that flash of lightning, Fang Chen felt all the hairs on his body suddenly stand on end, and a warning alarm screamed wildly in his mind. Without thinking, he moved almost purely on instinct, flashing aside in the void. Almost at the same instant, a fist containing terrifying power smashed the space where he had just been standing into collapse and fragmentation. "Oh, you sensed it in advance and dodged." The 3 Hell Asura Emperor materialized out of the void, his face filled with intense surprise. That was a fatal sneak attack at the sage level. How could this brat anticipate it? And not only that, he dodged it so easily, so completely. The distant Tianji shared the same question, but before she could analyze the reason. The 1 Hell Asura Emperor, who had long been ready to strike, appeared behind Fang Chen with a vicious grin. His 5 fingers curved into claws, carrying a vicious force that tore through space as they stabbed straight for Fang Chen's heart. "Facing the joint attack of us 2 sages, do you still think you can survive?" The 1 Hell Asura Emperor bellowed, his 5 fingers thrusting down with extreme ferocity. Seeing this, the 3 Hell Asura Emperor, who was cooperating nearby, couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. As long as they didn't give Fang Chen the chance to use the primordial heaven, imprisoning Gourd and that strange seed, a mere god transformation cultivator, was utterly insignificant before them. A mere flesh and blood body of the god transformation stage, facing such a fatal blow from an Asura Emperor, how could there be any chance of survival? The other Asura Emperors, who had split their attention to watch this, also showed traces of mockery in their eyes. 2 powerful Asura Emperors joining forces to blast a human brat at only the god transformation stage. What could possibly go wrong? Yet what happened next shocked every Asura Emperor present. It was as if Fang Chen truly had eyes on the back of his head. He could clearly perceive the Asura Emperor's sneak attack in advance. Just as the claws were about to pierce his body, he twisted his body violently, and his hand shot back like an iron clamp, instantly seizing the opponent's thick wrist in a death grip. The Asura Emperor's ferocious expression froze slightly. "You," he uttered in disbelief. He instinctively tried to erupt with all his strength to break free, but was horrified to find that his tremendous power felt like mud sinking into the sea. He couldn't break free in the slightest. Immediately after, Fang Chen turned coldly, and 9 top-grade spirit swords suddenly appeared around him, spinning at high speed and spitting cold light. The auras of these 9 spirit swords linked together instantly, forming the awe-inspiring Grand Derivation Sword array. In the reflection of the Asura Emperor's abruptly constricting pupils, a colossal sword of light, blooming with 9 colored brilliance, instantly filled his entire field of vision. He wanted to flee, but his wrist was held fast by Fang Chen. He wanted to call for help, but the best moment had already passed. With a thunderous roar, the 9 colored giant sword moved with world-splitting might, and in the next moment, it completely submerged him in boundless sword light. Amidst a series of sickening squelch sounds, Thousands of fierce sword beams pierced through mercilessly, instantly blasting his mighty Asura body into a dense cloud of blood mist. This scene happened too quickly, so fast that the surrounding Asura emperors had no time to render any aid. Tianji's gaze shook violently. She cried out involuntarily as his cultivation broken through to the sage realm. As soon as the words left her mouth, she stared at Fang Chen again and quickly shook her head, correcting herself. No, he's trained solely his physical body's power to the level of a sage. An unmistakable trace of shock and doubt quickly spread through her eyes. A human physique, could it actually be forcibly cultivated alone to the sage realm? This completely shattered her understanding of the cultivation system. Why had she never heard of it before? The three Hellasura Emperor near by wore a cold sneer that had completely frozen on his face. After a long while, as if waking from a dream, he let out a heart-rending, agonized howl, Old Fifth. These Asura emperors had been old friends for hundreds of years. In the southern heaven realm, where ancient giants roamed and various Asura tribes were hostile to one another, they had united to withstand dangers, thus fostering an exceptionally deep bond. After that brutal battle in the southern heaven realm, they had wandered alone in the void, which naturally made them cherish each other even more. But now, he had just watched helplessly as his companion of many years was blasted to pieces before his eyes, with not even a corpse left. The three Hellasura Emperor's eyes instantly turned blood, red, shooting out boundless, surging hatred. Fang Chen, you deserve to die. Amidst his furious roar, the three vortexes suspended above his head suddenly erupted with countless threads of karma, emitting a strange and eerie aura. In a flash, those threads wove together, coalescing into a colossal hand that blotted out the heavens, smashing the grand evolution sword array to pieces with a thunderous boom. Then, with irresistible destructive momentum, the giant hand ruthlessly slammed down toward Fang Chen's head. A blow erupting from the three risen Asura Emperor's wrath was not something a fleshly body that had just stepped into the sage realm could hope to resist. The crimson willow lashed its branches in a frenzy, ceaselessly issuing orders for rescue to the three wood emperors. But after months of bitter fighting against the ancient blood demon horde, they were already like arrows at the end of their flight, struggling to cope with the Asura Emperor before them, let alone break free to help. With hatred etched into his bones, the five, prison Asura Emperor, screeched at the three, risen Asura Emperor, don't forget to preserve his soul. Don't let him die so easily. The three prison Asura Emperor had long since descended into absolute madness, deaf to everything around him. In his bloodshot crimson eyes, a single thought churned, to tear Fang Chen to shreds. Sensing the lethal threat contained within that strike, Fang Chen's pupils constricted slightly. He inhaled a deep breath, and with a sudden motion, extended his hand to summon back that longsword swimming with sinister evil from across the distance. Immediately after, from the acupoints across his body's surface, three dazzling spiritual lights of distinct colors surged forth simultaneously, roaring and churning through his meridians like three frenzied dragons. Those were precisely the wild void flow lightning force, the blazing void flow fire force, and the newly condensed, incomparably heavy void flow earth force. These three immense void flow forces gathered in his palm, merging for the first time and actually transforming into a flowing liquid interwoven with red, white, and ochre hues. He then violently coated the entire blade of his sword with it. A fierce glint flashed in Fang Chen's eyes. Without a moment's hesitation, he raised that wicked sword wrapped in the three-colored void flow force and hacked fiercely at the dense karmic threads surrounding the three risen Asura Emperor. Sharp snap sounds rang out, like the deafening roar of collapsing mountains suddenly exploding. That towering giant palm condensed from karmic threads the instant it touched the three-colored void flow force was like snowflakes colliding with scorching flames countless in art-wined karmic threads melted and snapped upon impact, breaking inch by inch. Each snapping thread triggered an earth-shattering rumble like a mountain collapse. The dense bursts of sound merged, instantly transforming into a terrifying shockwave that rampaged wildly in all directions. The three prison Asura Emperor was forced back repeatedly by the violent shockwaves, his footsteps shattering the void. Moreover, because the karmic connections in the unseen realm were brutally severed, he instantly suffered unimaginable backlash, and on the spot, he threw his head back and spewed a large mouthful of black blood. On Fang Chen's chest, a tiny pennant embroidered with an ancient wind character stirred without a breeze, dispersing the entire onrushing torrent of annihilation around his form, sending it hurtling away into the distance. Fang Chen stared coldly at the opponent, the corner of his mouth curling into a mocking arc. Killing me is not so easy. Witnessing this scene, the remaining 4 Asura emperors all had expressions of disbelief on their faces. In just over a month, Fang Chen could now face a 3-risen Asura emperor head-on and even maintain a clear advantage. Upon seeing this, the 3 wood spirits also felt wild elation surge in their hearts. However, the joy on their faces did not last long before it turned into repeated roars of shock and fury. Because Tianji, foreseeing the unfavorable turn of events, had already let out a cold snort, lifted a strange purple fire jar with one hand, and directly charged toward the vast forest. With a casual flick of her hand, she splashed out a large swath of viscous purple flames. That was the terrifying flame that had once burned even the 9-leaf wood emperor to a charred crisp. Now scattered over the forest, the consequences were simply unimaginable. Wherever the purple flames passed, the weaker wood spirits, unable to even assume human form, were incinerated on the spot into piles of pitch-black ash. The lush forest that the ancient blood demons had failed to breach for so long was as fragile as thin paper before Tianji's fire. In the blink of an eye, she had actually burned a charred black path straight to the red willow tree. The 3 wood emperors watched with eyes practically bursting from their sockets. No longer caring for their own safety, they abandoned their opponents and desperately retreated to mount a rescue. But this panicked retreat, born of concern, immediately gave the Asura emperors an opening. A 2-leaf wood emperor had just exposed his back to the enemy when, in the next second, a long saber brimming with yin fiendish death energy flashed by like lightning and instantly lopped off his head. The other 2 wood emperors also suffered fatal wounds of varying severity at the same moment. Even so, they propped up their shattered bodies and forced themselves to charge before the red willow tree, using their last reserves of strength to shield it behind them. They wanted to use their lives, which would soon be extinguished, to protect this woman whom their king valued more than life itself. Fang Chen's expression changed drastically. He decisively activated the profound power of the heart of 10,000 Earths. With a flash of yellow light, he instantly teleported before the red willow tree. Looking at the 4 Asura emperors regrouping around Tianji, then at the only 2 heavily wounded wood emperors left at his side, Fang Chen's brows tightly furrowed. The sliver of hope that they had fought so hard to ignite was about to be ruthlessly extinguished again. He took a deep breath, flipped his hand to retrieve the primordial seed swirling with forbidden light, and said coldly, "You recognize this, don't you?" As his words fell, the pupils of the 4 Asura emperors involuntarily contracted sharply. Tianji's gaze grew complex as well. This was the primordial seed that had been formed after she personally trapped her father inside the primordial heaven, wrapping gourd all those years ago. In the hands of the old Fang Chen, this item held little threat, for his cultivation was merely at the deity transformation stage. To draw near an Asura emperor and accurately plant the seed on his body was nearly impossibly difficult. But now things were completely different. Fang Chen had obtained a sage physique. Tianji, holding the fire jar, fixed her gaze on Fang Chen and said in a deep voice, "Fang Chen, I do not wish to make things difficult for you right now." Her tone then turned exceedingly resolute. "I only want that infant. I will not harm anyone else. Step aside." Just what extraordinary secrets did this yet unborn infant conceal? That it could make Tianji willing to collude with a vicious entity like the 9 Suns Blood Demon Emperor, akin to seeking a tiger's skin, just to seize it. Feeling the increasingly surging life force within his womb, Fang Chen's gaze grew intensely resolute, and he replied word by word, "If you want your wish fulfilled, you'll have to pay a heavy price." Tianji's eyes turned utterly cold. She turned her head and issued an order to the blood-soaked 3-risen Asura emperor at her side. "Go ahead. I will naturally prepare a sage body for you to perform soul possession and cultivation anew." The 3-risen Asura emperor was greatly startled. He understood perfectly what those words implied. This was sending him to his death to self-destruct and take Fang Chen down with him. But he quickly steeled his resolve, a glint of firm determination flashing through his eyes. Gritting his teeth, he said, "I am ready to die for the 3rd princess without regret." As soon as he spoke, he immediately forced his broken body to rise again, madly urging the karmic threads to wrap him layer after layer. With a heaven-shaking roar, he charged at Fang Chen. "Human Fang Chen, come, die with me." Fang Chen sighed softly in his heart. Ultimately, he could not protect the infant in his womb. His only recourse now was to perish together with them in mutual destruction. But just then, a crisp crack sound, clear and distinct, echoed across the entire battlefield. It was the life-bearing womb, split open. The mysterious infant within was about to break out of its shell.